because we're going to talk about it right now. The Sixers at the 7 seed, the Heat at the 8 seed. Of course, you see the tail of the tape. The season series is tied. But when we look at the lineups here, you could say Kyle Lowry starts, or if you want to throw some other wing in there as well, that's definitely an argument. But you see the tail of the tape, the lineups, Bakari. Who do you have in this matchup? Joel Embiid is returning, but he's only got like 2 or 3 games under his belt since returning from a couple month hiatus, rather.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy about those 2 or 3 games? He
Didn't
looked
matter.
absolutely crazy during those games. So I'm gonna have Philly winning this series, and this Philly team. I think I put it we have our personal group chat of just people we know, and I remember like the first game Joel Embiid played, he had like a crazy game, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? It wouldn't be like outside of like the Celtics, who was the next team that I personally saw like could be a Eastern Conference be up there with the Celtics. I'm like,
Right.
it's going to be the Philly because this is a team that's had to adjust to losing Joel Embiid for majority of the season. They come out there and they competed every night. Tyrese Maxey's averaging almost 30 points a game. Guys like Kelly Oubre, Buddy Hield have stepped up. Once they traded for Buddy Hield. Kyle Lowry is starting for him. Like this is a team that's just kind of had to scrap and claw their way all season long just to kind of stay in that 7-8. And then you get Joel Embiid back, and honestly, he looks like he hasn't missed a beat. He came back
No,
looking like the runaway MVP that he was probably going to be if he would have played the
no doubt.
entirety of this season. I think this is the big year for him that he finally shows like, hey, I can get it done in the playoffs, or at least my game can translate to the playoffs. And, unfortunately for the Heat, they just have to run into that type of team. I think any other time the Heat kind of, edge this one out. But like I said, if there's a team that's up there with like kind of like the grind and grit level, not Memphis, that the
Right.
Heat have, I think it's Philly, especially with Nick Nurse being the coach now. So,
Yeah.
Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler, all those guys are great, but this Philly team is kind of feels a little bit different this year.
Yeah, it does feel different, and that's the thing is I don't know if it's just because Embiid's playing at that crazy of a level, but I will agree with you here. I'll take Philly in this matchup. I think we can both agree that the Knicks would rather play the Heat in this matchup just because of Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. But as weird as it sounds, this team, Joel Embiid has had Ben Simmons, prime Ben Simmons. He's had Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick around him. For some reason, this feels like the best team around Joel Embiid. Again, it could
Yeah.
just be that Joel Embiid is just that dude now. But this team, I feel, has a legitimate chance to shock the world and make it pretty far in the playoffs. I mean, you have the savvy veteran in Kyle Lowry, but Tyrese Maxey's playing at an all NBA level. Buddy Hield, of course, is going to be that DHO, JJ Redick kind of guy for Joel Embiid. He is going to get going in this playoffs, I think. And Kelly Oubre is playing his best career basketball here for the 76ers. This team, again, there's just something that feels different about them. And I'm going to take them here in that 7-8 matchup. But then we can sleep through this matchup. We really can. I mean, the Bulls at 39 and 43, the Hawks at 36 and 46. They just got Trae Young back, so that's something. Chicago's 2-1 in this matchup this season. But again, Trae Young just returned and he missed a couple of those matchups against the Bulls. But again, the Hawks, DeJounte Murray's had a resurgence since at the trade deadline. We were told, hey, DeJounte's guaranteed gone. Sell your house. He's gone. He's going to be traded, but he's still in Atlanta. And this team is still trying to convince themselves that this is the core that can get it done and get them over the top. We've had our multiple debates on this team here, or not debates, more so slanders. But thoughts about this matchup? I had the Bulls winning just because I'd rather see Caruso and DeMar in the playoffs or in that next matchup here in the play-in. But your thoughts here, I could be swayed either way.
Yeah, I took the Hawks here because listen, we both know that neither of these teams are beating the Heat or whoever falls to that next play-in game. Neither of these teams are winning, but I took the Hawks because honestly, this Hawks team is crazy. They can on any given night they can go beat the Celtics,
Yeah.
Thunder, and like the Nuggets in a 3-game stretch, but then lose to the Nets, Pistons, Rockets, and then like Spurs, like all the next few games. Like this Hawks team, that's just kind of been like the Hawks pretty much like their trajectory ever since that year they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think it's a given that next year Trae Young or DeJounte, like both of these guys won't be on that same team. Like you mentioned, DeJounte had that resurgence when Trae was out. Trae is coming back for the play-in. That's the reason I have them edging this game out.
Whoever wins this matchup, I want it to be a blowout. I want either the Hawks to blow the Bulls out or vice versa because both of these teams need a reset. The Bulls, of course, at one point in time had the trajectory of being a really good team in the Eastern Conference with Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, DeMar after he came off his career season in Chicago. Vucevic ideally was a great fit to space the floor. This team just hasn't got it done with all the injuries that they've had and all the drama between Zach LaVine. But I want them to get blown out if they are the losers of this matchup because DeMar needs to go, Vucevic needs to go. This team needs to suck for the next 3 years and just rebuild, in that way. But same for the Hawks. Whether if you rebuild completely or you just trade a couple pieces away, like Clint Capella and DeJounte Murray after he's had his resurgence, or if you think your team's better with DeJounte than Trae Young, then trade Trae Young. He probably has more trade value on the market. Well, I'm not going to fight you too hard. I'll say the Atlanta Hawks advance. And again, like we mentioned, we don't think that they can beat the Miami Heat in this matchup. The Miami Heat would then get the 8th seed. Of course, they're 3-1 against the Hawks this season. Some of those games were without Trae Young. Who knows? Maybe Trae Young has one of those New York Knicks performances in this one and gets them into the playoffs. But I hope not. They're 10 games under 500 for a reason. But then we're sitting here, of course, Boston, 1 seed. They play the Miami Heat, a team that they faced 3 of the last 4 years. And 2 of those times were in the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, they went to 7 last year. That's a team that it was a nightmare matchup for me a couple weeks ago when I talked about it. You just don't want to see the Miami Heat just because they've seemingly had your number. And again, for a year like this where Boston seemingly has it all to win it, I think the last team you want to run into is a team that has your kryptonite or is your kryptonite. But regardless, I think Boston would still handle business. The Knicks and the Sixers, interesting matchup there. Of course, the Knicks have the defense. They have a rotation of bigs, and they're going to need it against Joel Embiid because those boys are going to be in foul trouble.